This is the jpeg2RAW podcast. I'm Mike Howard. I'm broadcasting from the basement of Knob Studios here in sunny and hot Atlanta. jpeg2RAW is a photography podcast for the amateur photographer. You can find us on the web at www.knobstudios.com, and you can contact the show by emailing us at podcast@knobstudios.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Flickr, and Twitter by searching for jpeg2RAW, or just follow the links on our website. Back on show number 4, Tim Kemperle and I discussed photography in relation to travel photography and how Tim handles travel photography. Prior to that discussion and after that discussion, Tim and I had what I think is a pretty good discussion about photography in general and some things we were doing. So I thought I would release that discussion that was cut from the main podcast because it was before the show or after the show. I thought I would release that as like a show number 4 extra. So what's coming up in just a minute is that before, and then I'll have a little break and a cut, and I'll come back in, and then after the show. Before we get into that, I want to add one thing that I don't always say, podcast@novstudio.com clearly, that everybody can understand the spelling of that. It is, podcast at NOVSTUDIOS, novstudios.com. But also you can send us an email at podcast@jpeg2raw.com. That will work also. Or just go out to the site. Plus, don't forget to check out the forums. I've posted a few things in there. You can go to our website and then click on the link forums, and it'll take you to there. Come in and join me, and let's start posting. I like to post some photos there, get some question and answers, and some discussion going back and forth. So be sure to check that out. It's pretty easy to register. If you do have any trouble, just email me. And one last thing, I think I mentioned this in the regular show, but I'll mention it again. If you're looking to get on to Google+, send me an email at either one of those 2 email addresses I just mentioned, jpeg2RAW, podcast@jpeg2raw.com, or podcast@knobstudios.com. Send me an email at one of those 2 and let me know that you would like to have an invite to Google+. Right now it's invite only, but send me an email. I will send you an invite, and you can get on to Google+ and join us and everybody else out there. So here we go with the pre-show discussion from Tim and I.
Good evening, Mike. How you doing?
All right. How you doing, Tim?
Very good, very good.
Do you go by Tim or Timothy?
Tim.
Okay. I was just seeing your name on Skype is Timothy, and I wanted to make sure.
I think whenever I write my name down, I probably usually put Timothy. That was probably what was on my birth certificate. But the only person that ever calls me that is probably my mother, and that's when she's mad at me.
Yeah. Your wife doesn't call you that when she's mad at you?
No, she calls me a lot of other things, but not Timothy.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, I'm out there in the chat room right now. There's only me, so we may not have anybody come in. I've had people come in the past. I've had as many as 17 out there at one time. But you never know. These things are very finicky. People come and go. What I'm doing, if you want to go out there and see it, so you can see the photos as we talk about them. Do you know my website?
Yeah, I'm actually going to it now.
Okay. When you get there, you'll need to turn the sound off, or you'll get feedback from us talking, because we're streaming through there right now.
Okay, well, it shouldn't come over my speakers. It should only be coming over my headset. So, okay. 2 viewers, and I'm guessing I'm one of them.
I thought that would be me twice. I'm in there somehow twice.
Oh.
So we actually should see it go up to 3 whenever you come in.
Now I know I was in there once. The first week, I think you had the 2 ladies I was actually on, and I actually signed up at the time. And
yeah. Well, I'm using something different this time. I'm using live stream, so you don't have to register. I don't have it anymore because I've keyed in, but up top it should say something like nickname.
Well, it says school is now Jancy.
Oh, is it? The one thing with live stream is there is an ad right at first. Live stream does it, but that's it. They don't do any more ads after that. Is that what you're seeing?
Yep. Welcome to the JPEG podcast.
Yeah. we all, I think Dave over at Home Server Show and Jim and his show all moved away from Ustream because Ustream was inserting commercials during the show, and it was user time based. So let's say Dave has 20 people there listening to a show. Each person is getting an ad at different times. And as the host, you have no way of knowing when it is. And as the listener, you are just completely, you can't hear anything but that ad. There's nothing you can do about it. So it was extremely aggravating. The live stream has several really neat features that Ustream did not have. One is the ad is only at the beginning. And then two, you don't have to register. All you got to do is type in where it said nickname. You type it in, yeah. So you're in there now.
Right.
And I think that the registering turned people off. I think the people who are going to be regulars, like on Dave's show, if you ever watch that, the Home Server Show, he'll have a lot of people who are registered, but he'll have a good number of people who are guests. And I bet that's people who just don't want, a number of those are people who just don't want to register.
Quite possibly. I mean, I listen to the podcast usually on my iPod during the day if I get a chance.
Yeah.
I think I've only been on their, actually, I don't know, was it their live show or the BYOB live show? I was on one of them live listening in.
Yeah.
But I haven't had the opportunity. My son keeps me relatively busy.
Yeah, and mine are a little bit older, so I'm fortunate there. But they did keep me very busy when they were younger. So there's always some people like that. When I did the first show here on jpeg2RAW, I had some people afterwards say something to me about it. I'm not going to register. They were asking for all this information. And I understand that. Some people don't want to give that information out. So fortunately, we found live stream, which seems to be better all around for things. Now, right now, I'm showing a picture that I took. So I'll kind of intermix some of my pictures, some of your pictures. We're not going to talk about every one. I'm just going to roll through them and probably won't talk much about mine at all. We'll focus more on yours. And, as we go through them. But I got to be careful about referencing too much because most of the people who are listening, and as we can see tonight, it's only me and you. So probably all the people who are listening will be doing this later without the benefit of seeing the photos we're talking about.
That is right.
Yeah. So we'll try to keep that in mind as we talk. I went through a lot of your photos, and you got a lot of good ones there. So I'm sure I probably did not pick the one, the ones that you might have picked, but I got some out there that we can talk about.
Not a problem.
Yeah. So we'll just wait here till about 8 and then start just in case somebody comes in. It's the official time. But I think what I'm going to do is. We'll start off, I'll introduce you, and then we'll probably do a little bit of background. You sent me that long, that a lot of information. It wasn't that long, but a lot of information, and kind of give us your background and stuff like that. And I think, let's see if you pretty much did the same thing as I did. Is you switched to Lightroom, and by doing that, you switched over to pure RAW, right?
That's exactly it.
Yeah, so we'll touch on that too, because for me, I don't know if you were doing this, but for me, before Lightroom, I shot both JPEG and RAW.
I did it a time, and then it was painful. My drives were filling up. I wasn't really doing any RAW processing with it.
Yeah.
And just using it with Photoshop was not an easy task, especially when you take a lot of pictures. But Lightroom, I convert everything right over to a DNG then. It's made it so much easier. And the price, as long as you know somebody in school, the price is great. I mean, I think I even saw it last week for $69.
Oh, that's awesome. My wife is a teacher, so I got it for $79. So, yeah, $69 is even better than that. To me, if you can get it for that price, I mean, there's no reason to get anything else before you get Lightroom at that point.
I agree. And I held off on Lightroom. I was like, oh, it's probably the same as Photoshop. And the more I read about it, the more I said, you know what, let me try it. And then my wife's also a teacher, so I was like, you know what, this is a no-brainer for me. Let me at least try it. And I'm willing to try a lot of software. And I think you had posted like you were looking at I think you got the Nick package.
I did, yeah.
And I'm probably going to wind up getting that as well because I got the discount. It's worth it.
Yeah, and I've gone back and forth. I've used their HDR Effects Pro, and this last round of photos I've been doing, I seem to be getting some strange effect with the with noise in the image. And I was like, what is going on? Why is my D2X producing this much noise? I'm shooting at ISO 100. So I was looking at Trey Radcliffe's HDRs, and I noticed that he uses Photomatic. And that's what I have that. I bought that a while back, and I used to use that exclusively. And so, if it's good enough for Trey, and he is the master of HDR, I ought to look at it again. And I got the new version. I think it's version 4 or whatever it is.
4.2. Yeah, it's the one I have.
Yeah, and the results I thought were far better than Nick's results, at least the way I was processing it. And to some degree, I'm probably never going to get the full power out of anything just because I don't know it to that degree. I think I'm an expert at Microsoft Excel because that's what I get paid to do as part of my job. But these kind of things, I'm never going to get the maximum out of it. So I got to take into account what I'm going to be good at. And I seem to be better at Photomatic than I am at Nick's software and getting better results. So I've gone back to using that. Now, Nick has some other things like Vivisa or something. I bought the complete set. Vivisa, I love that one. And what that one allows you to do is like the picture you got right here, I'm showing right here. You get the blue sky, you get the white clouds, the water's a little green, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen how it works? I don't want to be telling you something you already know.
No, that
okay.
I don't know.
It uses something like control point. So like I'll go to a part of the blue sky and click there, and that's a point. And then I can expand that point out to take over the whole sky. And now what's happening is that blue sky is the only thing I'm affecting. So I can go in there and I can say, lower the exposure, increase the exposure, make it, change the white balance for that part of it, change the color. You can do fine tuning to just that section. So in this case, I got the blue sky and I got these blue little paddle boats or whatever down there. So let's say that those blues were too close together. So when I was doing that, I was affecting actually both. And I didn't want to affect the blue paddle boats. I would come down to the paddle boats and put a control point on that and expand it to cover all the paddle boats. And that would lock them down. So the things I'm doing to the sky now won't affect those things.
Oh, that's good.
It is amazing. I've seen like that, the yellow jacket the guy has on there. I could probably turn that blue and only affect the jacket. And, you could, a lot of these things you could do if you're really good in Photoshop, but this thing just makes it so much easier.
Tell you, you don't know what to believe in photographs anymore.
That is true. I don't know if you saw any of my recent HDR posts, but there's a trash can.
Yeah, I saw the one with the trash can today.
That took it. Had it in and out. Yeah, you commented on them. Yeah, and
I didn't even realize that it was in there in that one picture.
I missed it too. I've taken that shot in that area many times, and I normally will clone that out. And this one time I forgot. So actually, it turns out good. Now you can see, before and after a little bit. Yeah. What else was going? Oh, and I just recently, and you probably already know this, but this is, I learned stuff at my own pace, I guess. The sharpening within Lightroom when you go to sharpen something.
Right.
I always use clarity. I use that all the time. I love the clarity slider. But they also have sharpening down below. So when I go down to sharpening, I boost that up, and then you do the masking. Have you ever done that slider? So you hold down the Alt key and slide the masking thing over, and then it changed almost to like a negative film or something looking thing on screen, and the things that are white are going to be sharpened, the things that are black are not. And by doing that, you can, like in this case with this guy, I could do something where I wasn't sharpening all of the flat areas. So if you had a noisy image, you could limit what you're doing there. Have you done any of that?
I haven't really gotten into that much yet.
Once you see what it's doing, you can do it really fast and only affect. It's not super fine tuning. It's like I couldn't just do that one dude right there in the jacket if I wanted. I'd have to go and do what is it called? Not a mask, but the paintbrush thing or whatever it's called.
Right,
I can't remember that. You'd have to do that, but this is more like a global thing where you could, as you slide that thing across, it gets less and less areas that it's going to be sharpening. It actually works surprisingly well.
Well, most of the time when I do edits like that, I wind up doing that in Photoshop. That I have not gotten comfortable in Lightroom yet, and I actually wound up got myself a book a couple of months ago, Classroom in a Book on Lightroom, just because when I first got it, I was like, it was overwhelming, and it wasn't nearly the same as Photoshop was. I was like, I need to learn this, and I need to learn it right if I'm going to use it.
Yeah, I got Scott Kelby's book on.
My brother-in-law had that one, and I wound up getting that one as well. Actually, his reading is a lot easier.
Yeah, I like Scott's writing, and the only time I go into Photoshop now is when I need to do some kind of cloning out. I got some dust spots on my sensor right now that I need to get cleaned off.
Yeah, I saw that.
So yeah, it's much easier for me to do that in Photoshop. So I just bring it over to Photoshop, do that, and then there's times I do a black and white image and I want to have parts of it color. Like I've done several where it's a black and white image and I leave the person's eyes colored or something like that.
Right, or the flowers or whatever. Yeah, that's easier in Photoshop.
And there's those things like that I go into Photoshop for. Hold on one second. Yeah, we're still recording. I start the recording right away because you never know what you're going to want.
What do you use for recording? Odyssey, was that?
That was, it's Odyssey. I use, is it Odyssey or Audacity? Maybe
Audacity. Okay. Audacity. Yeah, that's it. Audacity.
I thought I've been saying it wrong all this time. I use that, and then I also have Pamela on my computer recording it, so I'm double recording it. I had, it was show number 3 or show number 2, where I thought we had a great discussion with Philip about iStock photography.
Right.
And Philip is, I've known him for a long time, but he's extremely busy, so it's going to be very hard for me to get him back on the show for months. And at the end of the show, as soon as he was done and we hung up, I went to Audacity to press, stop recording, and then I was immediately going over to hit save, and by the time I went over, it crashed.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my gosh, if I just lost the whole show. And I called Jim Collison.
Right.
And he said, no, don't do anything yet. You haven't lost it. There's a way to recover it. So what Audacity is actually doing is it's saving little files all the whole time it's going along. And there's a chance you might lose the last minute or last 10 seconds or something like that. But it's recording and saving files as it goes. And you can go and get those files. Now what it's doing is taking a left and right channel and putting them into 2 different files. So you got an A and B for every one of these all over the place. It is a little bit of work, but it's not terribly bad. And I was able to recover it. But it made me nervous, so now I record it, double. Just to be sure. And we got 5 viewers out there, but no one else has signed in. The one thing with here with live stream is it doesn't tell you guests. It only shows us a number of viewers and then only the people that are signed in. So if you're a guest out there and you can hear us, there should be a little section that says nickname. Just type in whatever nickname you want to have there, and you'll come in. You don't have to register anymore like you did with Ustream. And we'll be getting started here in just a couple minutes. And Tim, I'm not as good as Jim or Dave with the intros. So I don't worry about setting up a whole big intro. I do that after the fact. So,
yeah, I think I remember your first real podcast. You commented that you forgot to say anything at the beginning.
Yeah, and I guess hopefully I'll get better with that over time. But for now, I'm not going to worry about it. I don't need that extra stress. I'll just kind of get started in later. It's so easy in Audacity to bring those things in later and fix them up later. And it generally takes me multiple takes to get it the way I wanted it to be.
Well, I'll tell you, I was listening to Dave's podcast for a long time, probably from like the 40s or 50s when he was all by himself. So they've come a long way over at that show. Have you switched over to Windows 2011 home server?
I did it on a virtual machine, and then I decided I'm going to build this out as a full, boat machine, not virtual. And I decided to switch to Windows Storage Server.
Oh,
so I've actually stopped, not using home server, using storage server, but storage server is identical to Windows Home Server, except it allows 25 was it 25 connections?
Accounts. Yeah.
Yeah, 25 accounts instead of 10. And it can be part of a domain or part of a work group. And I wanted this machine to not only run Windows storage server, but I wanted it to run SQL server and SharePoint because I wanted to do some testing on those too. And that's why I decided to go with storage server. You probably can get those things to run on Windows Home Server just as well. I just wanted to go that route. And, it has everything else that Home Server has. Have you gone to 2011 yet?
Yeah, I'm full blown into it now.
Yeah.
I built a pretty big. My first server, I had taken old parts, old drives. This one, I pretty much got everything brand new, and I wound up going pretty much as PC Doc went. I got a RAID 5 with 10 terabytes in it for my videos because I use my movies. Mm-hmm. So I'm full blown to the server. My wife never understands it, but it's my midlife crisis. I put it to her.
Well, I wish if somebody was out there in chat, one of those other viewers would log in, they could tell us if you can hear us before we get started here. I can see that we're recording, but hold on one second. I'm going to do something. If you're listening out there in chat, you may hear some feedback. Yep. We're broadcasting sound. What I have to do is because I have my speakers and my headset are playing two different sounds, so I can hear you through Skype through my headset, but the speakers play everything else. So all I have to do is turn my speakers down and I don't get that feedback. And when I turn them up, I can hear that. But if I left them up, we'd be hearing everything we say double.
Yeah, that would be bothersome.
It gets aggravating very fast.
Well,
so
I'm going to guess people are listening because we still got the 5 viewers.
We do. So let's go ahead and get started. It's now 2 after 8. All right, as I mentioned, that first part, that was the pre-show, what Tim and I discussed prior to the show starting. If you come in the chat and listen to the live show, there is a pre-show discussion that Tim and I have. Some of that is open to the chat room where you can hear us right before the show starts. And then generally after the show ends, we stick around and interact a little bit with chat and continue our discussion. And those two things, the before show and after the show, are almost never included in the actual show that's released on the podcast. So here is the after the podcast discussion between Tim and I. I'll go through a couple other photos. I didn't want to spend too much time on mine here. And there's a slight delay from when I click this. That's another thing. If you're doing this live and we're talking, there's like a 30-second delay between when you do something and it actually shows up. That's my oldest. Back around 6 years ago, we're eating on the ship. I think you said you're going to go on a cruise before long too, right?
We're trying to go on one. I'd probably like to go on a Disney cruise. We keep talking about it. I know my sister-in-law had talked about November, but I can't pull my son. He'll be in 4th grade out of school. So when it's going to happen, I don't know. It's been. For myself, I want to say it's been 15 years, and my wife has never been on a cruise. The only bad thing is I think I gained an average of 10 to 15 pounds on the cruises I've been on.
Oh, yeah, because, everything, all the food is free.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's 24 hours. You can get almost anything. It's crazy, yeah. You got to find a way to work out or at least limit your intake.
Yes, and I haven't figured out. I have a seafood problem. I see the food, and I'm going to eat it.
Yeah, and not only is there an abundance of food, but the food is incredibly good.
Yes, I mean ordering double meals. It's been a while, and back then when I went, I was in good shape. I can't imagine how much I'd gain now.
Yeah, this image I got up here that I've left up here for a little bit is my youngest back then. And if you've seen the photo, I've had one photo that is sold really well of him on what's it called, iStock, and it's of him eating a hot dog. So I had the same thought, hey, let me get another shot of him eating a hot dog. But the problem here is, look, he's wearing that Disney thing. I'd have to clone all that stuff out. It's just not quite as good of a shot as the other one. But this is, if you saw the one earlier where he was making that mean face at me, this is the first one in that series of the mean face. The mean face is coming after that one. They like this one coming up here in just a second. Yeah, I think JC is into dance.
Okay. A lot of dance competitions down in Florida.
Really? What kind of dance were you doing?
It's German folk dancing, Schuhplattler. If you ever saw National Lampoon's European Vacation, that's what we do. I actually play the accordion for the dance team.
Really? You play the accordion? Wow.
Yeah. Something my grandfather did.
I have no musical talent. My oldest son is into guitar. He's very good at guitar, but he didn't get that from me.
Now, my father didn't play, but my grandfather actually played a button box. I wound up playing the accordion. I started, I think it was in the 3rd grade. I gave it up for quite a few years, and now I play for the dance club. I don't play a lot, but I play well enough. And now my son, he's playing piano, and he's playing that since he's 4 years old and does a great job with it.
Yeah.
And he'll play the accordion when he gets a little older.
Okay. This is my youngest son. Again, he's sleeping here.
He's out.
He is out. You know, in Disney, we had a tendency to get to the park really early. We get there. I think I mentioned this to you before. We get there an hour or so before the park opened, and we also would stay there forever into the show, into the park closed. So we were wore out by the end of the day. Now this was on a cruise. But he usually runs till he wears out. And,
yeah.
And you know, at that stage, it's much easier to take a picture of him because he can't, you know, fuss at me because he's asleep. I got a picture coming up here that really, you know, sometimes I just can't capture the image as good as it looked in person. This is the entrance to the boat when you first get onto the boat.
That's amazing.
And it you know, this image doesn't do it justice. It is just absolutely amazing when you come in, because I'm standing up above it. When you come in, you're actually coming in down below. You can't really see it. There's a door, and it's just this gorgeous location. And somehow they know your name, and they say, "Welcome, Howard family," and they do it all this stuff, and you come in. It's fantastic. You're gonna
leave it to Disney. But this would have been a great picture with a really wide angle, like a fisheye lens. This is where a digital SLR with the cropped sensor really doesn't do it justice.
Yeah, and I think back then the widest I had was my 24 to 85, and a 24 to 85 on a crop sensor is even worse. Now I have a 12 to 24 lens.
Oh, that's nice.
And if you ever look at any of my landscape shots, you know, those HDRs have been taken recently, those are all with that 12 to 24. It's a Tamron, I think it is. I generally shoot, you know, Nikon, but there's a few lenses that, you know, that the off-brand, the you know, what do you call it, the secondary brands make that are just fantastic. And this is oh crap, where's the name of it? Tokina. So Tokina 12 to 24.
Now you like that lens?
I love this lens, yeah. Because
I know they sell that lens for my camera as well, and I always wanted to get it, and I was like, do I want to get an off? Because I usually stick with the lens that belongs to the camera. Actually, all of my lenses right now are either Sony or Minolta. But that looked like a good lens. I've seen decent reviews on it, but I didn't know anybody that actually had one.
It's one of those lenses from Tokina. There's not many other Tokina lenses I'd buy, but this is one of the ones that is really good. And what's funny is that it was really, really difficult to get at first. Every time I go online to Amazon, to Adorama, or to B&H, it was always sold out. And this one time I go on, it's like there's two of them. I hurried up and bought it, and when it came in the mail, it was a Canon one. And my first thought was, what the heck? They sent me a Canon one, those idiots. And then I looked at what I ordered, and I had ordered a Canon lens. So fortunately, I had a friend who shot Canon. I said, "Hey, you know, I'll take $20 off if you want, or whatever. I don't. Maybe it was even more than that. If you'll take this lens, you know, you can have it. It's very difficult to find, even on the Canon side." And he was, "Oh yeah, I'd love to have that lens." So I was able to sell it to him, and then wait for the one to come out. And if you shoot at 12. Yeah, you got to be very careful about your angle because you'll get the strange effect.
Oh yeah, you don't want to have any lines on the side.
Yeah, you get a very strange effect. But if you come in just a little bit, or if you're very careful with your angle, you know, it's It's a good lens. It's 12 to 24. You can get. It's crazy how I'll get close to people. And they're like, "What are you doing? Taking a picture of my nose?" I said, "No, I got your whole body from your feet to your
really.
And this last image, and then I'll let you go. Is I saw this image as I was coming through, and it's your son sitting on the speeder or whatever they call that, and that has got to be one of the most. That both times I went, I took photos at the same location. And it's really I love seeing that photo because I know that location well.
Well, that was actually one of the tips I thought about. I forgot to mention. Before you go somewhere, look at on the internet at pictures that other people take, so you could say, "Oh, that's a nice place. That's where I want to get a picture."
Yeah, that is a good tip, and
especially nowadays with the internet, it's out there. Somebody's taken the picture already.
Yeah, if you're going to probably anywhere you're going to go on vacation, you can go on probably Flickr or something like that, or Google or something, and do a search and see what other people have taken at that place. Yeah, that's a good tip. I can probably splice that in somewhere, maybe. All right, guys. Chris, thanks for coming out. And yes, Chris, I do want to have you on the show. Whenever you can make it. I have. Speaking of what Tim just said. Is I did a search one time for Swanee photographers. I live in this town of Swanee, looking for places to shoot around here, and I came across this wonderful photographer who's like a mile from me. I absolutely love her photos, and I'm hopefully going to get her on sometime later this month. So other than that, I would love to have you, Chris, on the show anytime you have time. We'll contact through email. And Tim, Let's discuss when you can come back on. I don't want to abuse you. I know you got a lot going on, but
whenever you need me, that's fine. My son was behind me just a little while ago saying, "You're doing a great job."
Oh no, you did great. You did great.
So yeah, anytime you need me, I love photography. So
okay, good. All right, well that's it for tonight.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
Good night.
Thanks, chat.
Thanks, chat.
Good night.